Okay, we are recording. Take us away.
Okay, thank you. Where my script? All right, this is it is 7:05 p.m. on the 13th of January 2021, and this is a meeting of the Trails, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this committee needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the committee is participating in the meeting from separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear and audible and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, we're going to conduct a roll call and ask each committee member participating in the meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. My name is Ken Comer. I'm the chairman and representative at large. Braddock District, Mr. Cosgriff. Not present. Hunter Mill District, Mr. Rowe.
This is Alex Rowe with the Hunter Mill District in my home.
Mount Vernon District, Mr. Klein.
Oh yeah, this is Jim Klein calling from Mount Vernon District.
District, Mr. Smith.
This is Wade Smith in the Drainsville District, calling from my home.
Providence District, Mr. Foster.
Stephen Foster from the Providence District, calling from my home.
Mason District, Mr. Albright.
James Albright, representing Mason District, living in Mason District right now.
Springfield District, Mr. Liebert.
This is Carl Liebert in Burke, Virginia, representing the Springfield District.
Thank you. Lee District, Mr. Pipkin. Not present. Sully District, Ms. Ampa. Clifton Horse Society, Ms. McDaniel. Fab, Mr. Newman.
Sorry, this is Karen representing Sully. I was trying to unmute and I couldn't quite get it.
Good, thanks, Karen. Got it. And we had no response from Clifton Horse Society, Ms. McDaniel, right? Okay. Fab, Mr. Newman.
Good evening. This is Sean Newman with Fab. I am in my home in Springfield District.
Fairfax Area Disability Services Board, Ms. Cohen.
This is Debbie Cohen, representing the DSB.
Fairfax County Federation of Citizens Associations, Mr. Tipton.
Hi, this is Mark. I'm in Rockville at the moment, representing the Fairfax Federation of Citizens Associations.
Fairfax County Park Authority, Ms. Ionetta.
This is Beth Ionetta, the Fairfax County Park Authority, calling from my home in Fairfax.
Northern Virginia Builders Industry Association, Ms. Portilla. Not present. Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, Ms. Reese. Thought I saw her.
Sorry, Andrew, you were on mute.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, Andrea Reese with Nova Parks, calling from my home in Arlington. Thanks.
We're saved by our video conference. If I can see you, I know that you made the mute mistake. So once again, we benefit from that. Thanks. Got it. Washington Area Bicycle Association, Mr. Albers.
Alabama.
Say that again.
Howard Albers calling from.
Thank you, Howard. Got it. Okay, could the staff identify themselves as who's here, starting with, I guess, Chris.
Chris Wells, Fairfax County Department of Transportation.
This is David Loss, also with Fairfax County DOT. Nicole Winans will be joining us in a little bit. She is in the midst of another meeting at the moment. Just also, while I have the floor, do try to remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking a couple of times. I can also mute you, and so if I start getting feedback, I will do that, which is why a couple of you were talking and no one could hear you. I muted you for you. So just a reminder. Also, if you're having connection troubles, you may do better off if you turn off your video. It's a little exclamation point next to Howard's name, so that if your internet starts lagging.
Okay. Ken, this is Bob. I was here when you called me, but I found myself on mute, and due to technical difficulties beyond my control, it took me a couple seconds to get in there. But I'm here. Have been here since 7 o'clock.
Roger that. Okay. That's the Braddock District, Mr. Cosgrove.
Calling from home.
Calling from home. Is there anybody else who got fumbled up by our mute buttons? Okay. Is there any member of the public present?
Pete Sitnick.
Pete, yes, please. And you are just a public member of the public, is that correct?
I'm a member of the public. I'm also with the Transportation Advisory Commission and volunteered to liaison with this committee if you would like to have me do so.
Oh, we would love to have you do so, Pete. Thank you very much. Our rules require, of course, that we set aside time at 8:30 for members of the public to talk. You are essentially a member of the public, so you'll interrupt our session at 8:30 just to give you the floor if you have anything you wanted to say. So, and any other members of the public, also any other members of the public who are here. I assume anybody besides Pete. Okay. I move that each member's voice may be adequately be heard by each other member of this committee. It is our practice to approve this and all subsequent motions by acclamation. So I must ask now if there are any objections or nay votes to that motion. Hearing none, the motion carries. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels this emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this committee to physically assemble and safe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this committee and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this committee may conduct its meeting electronically through the Cisco WebEx video conferencing platform. This format will also provide a dedicated phone line. The public may access this meeting by going to fairfax.webex.com and entering event number 179-553-6797 and use password, all one word, Trails 2021, the capital T and the rest are small letters. Or by calling 844-621-3956 and using access code 179-553-6797. It is so moved. I will again ask if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. Finally, it is next required to establish that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda address the emergency itself, are necessary for the continuity of Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this committee's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved. I will ask again if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. We may now begin our agenda, which is has all been sent to you folks as a PDF document. And it should say county seal at the top. It says call to meeting, and then we're now in the discussion section. 5 items of the discussion section. First are elections to fill positions per Article 4 of the TSB committee bylaws. Gosh, I don't know how to do this. It's the first time we've had to do this. I'm hesitant to call down the roll again. Why don't I turn the floor over to the vice chair at the moment, who's Bob Cosgrave, and he will call for other nominations from the floor, other than my name's been nominated, other nominations on the floor, and then conduct the vote in any way you see fit, Mr. Cosgrave. How's that sound?
Thank you, Ken. Pursuant to the charter of the Trails, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee in December, and actually in November, we had nominations for the role of chairman for the 2021 year. And at that point, the only nomination was for the incumbent chair, Ken Comer. So I would ask at this point if there is any other nomination for the office of chairman of the committee. Hearing none, it appears that Ken Comer is the only nominee for this position. I think the best way to do this would be to vote by acclamation. So if there are any no votes for Ken, I would like to entertain to hear them now. Hearing none, Ken Comer is elected as the chair of the committee for the 2021 year.
Thanks, Bob. Sorry, we actually didn't coordinate that ahead of time. So, so there we are. We just made that up.
Sorry. If I could just jump in, it took me a second to find the tab, but I can set up a poll question and put it out to the group, and then everyone can vote on it. If that would be useful. If there aren't alternative choices, I don't know.
Yeah, that probably would be a good.
Okay, I'll just
anticipate that. We might do that in the future. We almost always approve things by acclamation or collect up any nay votes, but yeah, it would probably be good to have that in our back pockets.
Okay, so I just opened the poll. If everyone could answer it real quick, would be great. And we can go on as the.
How does it work to vote?
It should have popped up a thing on the screen to vote. I can't exactly see it because I guess as the person who set it up, I don't get to vote.
It's in the panel with polling and chat and attendees.
Yeah, but I mean, do we just highlight Ken's name and submit? Is that how we vote?
Yes, there's a selection button next to Ken's name, and
You get to see the results, Dave?
Yep. We have 13, but we have 5 no answers still. I guess one of those would be Chris, who I guess technically doesn't get a vote, and one would be Pete, who also does not get to vote. Sorry, guys.
It appears to be a landslide.
I'll do my Dick Nixon thing.
If we'd known this, we could have voted early and often.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go ahead and close the poll, and we can move on.
Okay. So the next is a nomination for vice chairman, and is that what the bylaws call for, by the way? To nominate and vote on the vice chairman, or is that just an appointed position? I thought that was just an appointed. Well, regardless, I have to say, Bob Cosgrove has served as our vice chairman for I don't even know how long, Bob. That's been quite a while. And I need to say publicly that he actually runs this committee. He does all the things necessary between the months and puts in more work than any one of us, and the actual opposite end of the spectrum from the amount of work that lazy old Ken Comer does. So if Bob Cosgrove is willing to serve as vice chairman, if he's not willing to serve, I absolutely understand that. But if he's willing to do so, it would be delightful if he could do so. So let me ask you, put you on the spot, Bob. I sent you an email, but you didn't get to it. Are you willing to serve as vice chairman for another year?
Yeah, I didn't get your email till time late, but I did answer it. But yes, I'd be willing to serve as the vice chair for the 2021 year.
Okay, so I think according to the ground rules, I do the nomination. I nominate Bob Cosgrove, and I guess we have to vote on that, right?
I'll second that if it needs a second.
So I'm just going to do this by acclamation. Does anyone object to Bob Cosgrove being our vice chairman? So by acclamation, Bob Cosgrove becomes the vice chairman. You lucky duck for another year. Now, we have an office for secretary that we have not filled. And we generally leave it unfilled. We have left it unfilled. We take the duties of secretary as somebody who's had been somebody responsible for doing our minutes. As it stands, we do not do minutes because we have video minutes, recorded minutes that are published on the website, and they replace our regular minutes. But it would be nice to have somebody in the office of secretary that could, at least for one thing, publish our attendance so that we can note whether or not we're getting enough attendance on a month-by-month basis, and perhaps other duties as they emerge, although we haven't needed it. I'm going to leave this unaddressed for a month, and I'd like the committee to think about this to see if there would be anybody willing to serve as secretary and perhaps generate a modest amount of duties that could be applied to a secretary, perhaps taking some of the duties that Bob Cosgrove has taken upon himself and sharing that a little bit. But I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Certainly don't want to select anybody. So please communicate with me and Bob privately if you think you might like to take something like that on, and we'll and what duties you'd like to do, and I think we'll move forward with that. So we'll leave that position vacant for at least a month and put it on next month's agenda, unless anybody has any objection. Hearing none, wandering over to my, okay, so that gives that review and discussion of the Capitol Trail Network in Fairfax County by Chris Wells for 10 minutes. The floor is yours, Mr. Wells.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to answer in my mind your question about do we vote on things, and I can't find the Trails Committee charter anymore because my staff has moved my files around, but hopefully we still have it. Okay, let's see how, David, you're going to have to give me permission to share a screen, I think, because share is grayed out on my thing. There it is.
There you go.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Okay, let's see how this works. Here's the agenda. Here's all the people. Let's, we use non-Adobe version, so let's see if I can find the countywide one. Is that it? Yay. Okay, so hopefully you can hear and see my screen. The Capitol Trails.
Chris, could you just go to view and then full screen within Foxit, and we can get a better picture of it, I think. I thought it would be right there. I don't know. So used to Adobe.
Well, I've got district specific ones, but
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Zoom? No. Sorry. Again, we have a non-Adobe. So the Capital Trails Network was originally something that was conceived by trail advocates around the region, and the idea being that there are regional trails that connect to each other, and that it is possible to bike around the region, and they wanted to promote that. So we originally, as a county, were asked to put in our trails that would be good candidates to be part of this regional network. And at the time, we were told that they needed to be either funded or existing. Subsequent to that, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments actually endorsed the Capital Trails Network. But then when we saw that map, we saw that the other jurisdictions had not been held to the same standard of only listing trails that were funded and built. And then worse than that, COG said that they were going to use being part of the Capital Trails Network as one of their checkboxes for scoring projects for consideration for funding. So luckily, to resolve that, the Capital Trails Network is being updated. And so we have met internally as staff, and Nicole has briefed each of the individual board offices. And I believe each of you members of the Trails Committee that represent a magisterial district have also seen some of this. But for those members that are not a magisterial district representative, you have not. And so the purpose tonight is to sort of go over this at a high level, and then we can always share these files. So this is countywide right now, and I know it's a little hard to see. I'll switch to some individual districts. But the blue represents the trails on our two different trails maps, the trails map and the bicycle master plan. The red.
Chris, can I ask you to close the bar at the top? It'll give more of the screen. You know, I don't know what you call it, the toolbar. You can close that or collapse it.
Minimize the ribbon. Oh,
yeah, there. Okay, thanks.
Yep. So the red lines represent the trails that were adopted into the original Capital Trails Network, but then the green lines represent what we have proposed to add to the update to the Capital Trails Network. Now that's still draft right now. Again, this has been only discussed a little bit internally with staff, such as with the Park Authority and with the board offices. The approach to this was that we were not proposing any new trails that the public had not already vetted through the approval of the Trails Plan or the Bicycle Master Plan. So those green lines represent already approved plans. However, as part of our internal discussions, we have already had concerns raised that even though they might be good lines on a map, they might not be something that could ultimately be completed as an asphalt trail or as a regionally bikeable trail. So this is still draft, but that gives you an idea of how that looks across the county. If I switch to the different districts, it's a little zoomed in. I'm just loading these for the first time on this computer. Let's see, how do I zoom out? Yeah, there we go, zoom out. This is Braddock District. So again, the same logic. What you're seeing is the red trails are the existing Capital Trails networks, and the green trails are additions. It's a little hard to see here, but for instance, you're seeing Rolling Road as an addition in the Braddock District, Little River Turnpike at the edge of the Braddock District.
This is not accurate. There's no trail down Braddock Road.
There is. It's just not a very good one. The areas that you see there, it consists of sort of three different facilities. There's the terribly narrow, sketchy one by where you live, Ken, that comes from the Beltway out to Kings Park to Guinea. At Guinea, it does pick up as a trail, doesn't it, to 123, or is it sidewalk?
Okay, yeah. I mean, it flips from one side of the road to the other, but yeah, okay.
Right.
There is asphalt. Technically, some of it's overgrown, and it's like, oh my goodness.
You need a you need a magnifying glass to find it. And then west of Braddock.
The is capital is considered a trail, and some of the things that are mapped here would not meet that definition.
Right.
Sure. So again, and I'm sorry, you were cutting in and out, and I don't know if that's, for some reason I have trouble with WebEx, even though I do these video meetings all day. But yes, that's a good point. So again, the task we were originally given was to only pick existing and funded trails. Now we're updating that to include regionally significant trails, but we are no longer held to facilities that are existing. So the fact that there is a plan to improve the Braddock Road Trail from at least 495 to Guinea still would, I think, make it an example of something that, when it is improved, would be a part of a regional trail network. So that's a good point. If we've missed, for instance, between Guinea and 123, if that is not up to a standard that would be considered a bikeable regional trail, and in between Guinea and 123 there is not any plans to improve that, then that would be the kind of information that we should take into account and probably remove from this designation.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry. The green is new additions to the Capitol Trails map, but are
Correct.
those existing trails, or is that where we intend to at some point build a trail? What is the green exactly? I'm sorry.
The green should be either existing or planned, but I don't think we were given like a constrained long range planning criteria. In other words, that it's actually funded. So this was trying to identify what could be regionally significant routes. But that's Nicole is actually the one who's working on this, and she'll be joining us later. But that's a good question. That, for instance, if the section of rolling north of Keene Mill Road, there are no plans to improve that trail. So again, if that, even though it's a trail, if that wouldn't meet someone's criteria of a reasonable regional trail without plans to improve it, should we be including that? That's exactly the kind of input we want.
I want to hear us picking on everything as we go through. So I guess the question, can you hear me better this time without video? And I had sent a response to Nicole when she had sent this map out. I'm in Providence, and if you look right there at Arlington Boulevard, it's right at the top of the image that we're showing right now, 495 and Arlington Boulevard. So first of all, you cannot continuously cross the Beltway on Arlington Boulevard. There is no trail, no sidewalk. It's a death suicide ride, so that should definitely not be marked in red. And east of the Beltway on 50, we did get a nice sidewalk, but as well as I do, it's not a trail. Yes.
Right. Yeah, no, this is great input. I think with
my test, Chris, is, could I look at this? The last view you had, my house was right in the middle of it. Okay, could I look at this and back determine what on earth the colors should have meant? In other words, should it be obvious, since I'm intimately familiar with all the trails that were on that thing? What should the design be obvious from it And I would have never been able to deduce what you just said. I would never be able to deduce this is what's here, and the green is what maybe or might be or whatever. It's just it's just so if somebody is using this as a baseline for planning, this is going to lead to mistakes, misprioritizations, and a variety of other things. I just have to wonder if this map doesn't do more damage than it does help for planning a trails network.
Can I add to that? I found the map is very confusing. I can't figure out what's on it. You said the red lines. Well, there are red lines all over the place on that, what you showed. And then they're green, and I can't, it's hard, the map, I can't tell what's what on the map. The colors are all, it has way too much information on it or something. Because there's green all over the place, and I don't think, are you putting, I just find it very confusing to look at this map.
I'll counter that by saying, I guess I think more data. And so I don't know whether the COG, the MCOG, they have a, ideally what I think you'd like with a map like this is it to be in a GIS space so that you could point to a specific trail and you could get the specifics of it, the width, that sort of thing, like a whole lot more information, so you're going to have conflicting views, whether it's too complicated or doesn't contain enough information, right? I mean, I guess it's what's the purpose and who's the audience is important.
Yeah, this is Jim. If you go to the Capital Trails Network website, you can look at their map. And I think the end result of this is that there'll be some existing trails, and then there are planned trails, which I think are dashed. So if you just think about it that way, and it is a planning document at this point, it would help you a lot. So it doesn't, if Braddock Road is going to be at some point, or you want it to be a major regional trail, we should put it on this network and say planned. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah,
and
but
then
if
the other
it's
thing is that
aspirational, it needs to be aspirational.
yeah, definitely, and also need to really count on that criteria of it being bikeable. I mean, a major asphalt 10-foot, 11-foot wide pathway.
Yeah.
We don't want to put pedestrian trails on here. It would be some other funding.
Yeah, or some reasonable, it can't be one block on the north side and then one block on the south side and one block on the north side. Yes, technically there's a trail there, but that's not a bicycle, that's not a bikeway.
I think that's not the way to interpret it. The purpose of this is to set out a network, and then you may build it over years. But it isn't necessarily saying that, okay, well, tomorrow this goes into effect because all these trails are there. Some of them aren't. And as you pointed out on Braddock Road, there needs to be, more built all on one side or something, whatever. But the purpose of this map is to set up a network that you slowly put into place, and it allows you to set priorities as you go forward. At this point, I think worrying about whether, the trail doesn't exist or something, they're all on the trails plan. So, and then also, if this goes into effect, it gives a slight edge to those that are on it to get priority funding. And so, for example, the Beltway and Route 50, it may give it priority to get the crossing solved. The fact there isn't one now is the issue, but it would be a great part of a regional network if you get that solved. So, am I right, Chris? That's the purpose of all this.
I think that's our concern. That first of all, right now, COG's influence over funding is not that large. So we probably couldn't get enough funding from COG to cross the Beltway. But what if it got worse? What if this designation actually did become a scoring criteria, say in smart scale or something like that? So we looked at this opportunity, this effort as an opportunity to catch up with the other regional jurisdictions that did show planned trails for potential funding benefits. But I certainly hear some of this criticism about what it is we're trying to show here. Is this just planning for funding, or is it intended to show how someone could bike? And Ken is right. If you're trying to bike across the region, you don't want to have to cross every block, because it'll take you a long time to get across the region.
Right. So I think Nicole sent this out to the magisterial representatives in December. And so presumably, like, for instance, this 495/50 crossing, I mean, I pointed out to her in my response, there's no crossing there. Like, you cannot mark that in red. That would be, could lead to an over assumption that there's something there when it's not.
And there needs to be. I mean, that would be a place, if I could put something in orange, that would be great, because there's no way to get across the Beltway anywhere near there.
So Chris, what is the deliverable on this? What are we giving?
Providing GIS input to the Capitol Trails people to put it into their map. So this actually, to answer Stephen's question, this is GIS based, but
yeah,
we're actually giving the GIS layers to the Capitol Trails Coalition.
Correct. I mean, that to give them our recommendations for what would be things to add, with this within a GIS map. Yes.
And are we characterizing the trails or the trail segments as, built, unbuilt, in need of improvement, plan for improvement? I mean, what kind of characterizations do we have for these trails that we are, or that you guys are going to be sending over to them? Because that's a really important aspect of this, rather than just the colors.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think they ask for anything like that. They're just looking for this regional vision. So, but I think this is excellent feedback, and this is exactly the kind of feedback that we were looking for tonight.
Let me add one other question, which is, how does if we're making comments and discussions about this particular network, and then it gets submitted and then it becomes part of the COG plan, how does that relate to the active Fairfax trail network? I mean, are we actually, like, if we discuss one and just put it on because it needs to be there, how does that then relate to what eventually goes into the active Fairfax?
That's a good question. Timing wise, this is unfortunately sort of backwards. That the update and endorsement of our plans will happen by a year from now in 2022. So it could go either way. We expect public outreach, some people who are for things, some people who are against things. So the fact that it would be designated as part of the Capitol Trails network, on the one hand, could sway people to say, well, I guess I support it, even though I don't like it. On the other hand, something could disappear as part of the active Fairfax Trail transportation plan process for some unforeseen reason. And then it would actually be deleted from our county plan, and then would need to be deleted from the next update of the Capitol Trails network. So it could go either way, or multiple ways.
Chris, let me say, once again, this is just laying out a network. It's not saying that these trails are all there. And I think the red is just, it doesn't imply that the Braddock Road or the Route 50 trail is there. It's just that somebody picked it to be part of the Capitol's Trails network, not that it all exists now.
That's what.
So this is, but I mean, this is a big opportunity to get this laid out in a regional way, which gives it some, it does give it some oomph when the time comes for setting priorities. COG isn't probably ever going to have much money for it, but if we have a network that everyone agrees to is a good one for a regional trail, got to be regional now. Then this is then you work from this. Once it's laid out, people work towards it over the years. So,
Wade, I think we all agree with you that with the principle, but it's as we look at the areas in our particular areas of familiarity, red is actually supposed to be in existence. That trail's there. Don't worry about building another one. which is a cause for concern. If it's used for the purposes you said, Wade, which that I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, but what Chris said was, well, the red is what was laid out, and then the green is what Fairfax County has added. That's what you said, Chris. Right? You weren't implying the red was what
the red was, but you're both right. So the red was intended to be either existing or funded, and so on the one definition of existing, Braddock Road exists. Is it as a trail that you could cover, 40 miles a day on. Braddock Road doesn't exist. So this is again good feedback and the kind of stuff that I think we actually need to discuss with the Capital Trails Network people again to see what criteria they really are looking for as we do these updates. And again, if we're going to be doing updates annually or every 2 years or something, the opportunity exists to make this better, both factually and as a planning document.
Well, I think you need two maps then. One is the map of the network, the proposed network, which doesn't mean the trail. Well, in Drainsville, we've added Georgetown Pike trail to it, but of course a lot of that doesn't exist, but it's on the trails plan. But you need two. It seems to me two maps would be. One is to lay out the network and say this is the proposed network and everyone agrees to it. Then the next map shows, okay, well, what's the status right now of this network? And it would show, for example, that you can't cross the Beltway on Route 50, that's a gap. So to me, I think you have to present it both ways. And one gives you the network, and then the other gives you, well, okay, here's all the work we have to do to get the network in place.
I agree, Wade. Beth, go ahead, please.
So one of the topics that we need clarification on, and we'll probably need more discussion, is that what standard is the expectation that these trails will be built to? There are some that, as Karen was indicating in her question in the chat, is that, there's not all of the CCT is in the Capital Trails Network because the northern section really wouldn't meet what the Capital Trails Network requires or recommends for their type of trail use. They want asphalt, at least 10 feet, and there are some areas of the cross-country trail that can't meet that. So I think we need a conversation as to when we identify these trails, what is the design standard that we are expecting to meet, because there are ones that can't meet that, even though you identify it. And there's a big, big difference between ADA and AASHTO standards, and that has a direct impact to parkland. So that's part of the conversation that we had when we met with Chris and Nicole and the Capital Trail people, is what is their design expectation that these facilities should meet?
Yeah, that adds one more layer of complication for the map drawers. What standards, and that would also cover my concerns about the Braddock Road. Under one standard it exists, and under another it doesn't. So,
may I chime in again, Mr. Chairman? We're getting in the weeds on this. I think the goal, at least initially, was, okay, what is the network that we want? And Chris was trying to show us that. I just think the map is very hard to read. So it'd be great if the map could be better. But I guess maybe the committee should focus on that right now. Is this? Maybe I don't think we vote tonight or anything, but at this point, let's focus on what is the network we think is the network, and then all the complications fall out of that. But we don't have to solve that tonight or get into the weeds too far tonight.
I think Chris just presented it because he wanted feedback from us, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, again, Nicole has shared these district ones with you district reps, but Ken, for instance, being at large, you probably hadn't seen these, and anyone that is representing one of the other groups has not either. So we just wanted to present it to the entire group tonight. The Capital Trails Network folks actually told us there's not a hard deadline on this. They were trying to get things going, but when we asked some also critical questions about exactly some of the things you guys have talked about tonight. So why don't we take this feedback tonight, and we'll talk with Nicole, and I think we do have another meeting. We're still, talking with Beth in the parks, and then we'll have another meeting with the Capital Trails Network.
Network issue. That is the thing that the at-large member is supposed to pay attention to. So why don't you send it to me too, and I'll offer some kind of countywide commentary.
Okay, perfect.
Is the committee? This is the first time we've seen this map, but maybe Chris, maybe you all just got it prepared. But you're going to send the proposed map to the committee members so we can all look at it as together?
Yeah, I thought Nicole had shared like Drainsville with you, Wade, and so on and so forth. But
well, yeah, I got the Drainsville, but what about the map you were showing? I'd like to see the whole network myself.
Sure.
The committee can weigh in on that. I mean, I assume, but we're not just stuck with our own districts.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Let me ask you about this Capital Trails Network. Is it actually supposed to be a way to move across jurisdictions or throughout the region, as opposed to just every trail?
It is supposed, originally it was more of an advocacy tool. So it was originally to promote the idea of bicycling by a group of trail advocates. But as it became endorsed by COG, I think the idea is more like you're saying, that it is supposed to represent the regional network of bicycle trails, and that this region, the multi-jurisdictional region that we have, does have a lot of trail assets that can connect to form the backbone of a regional network now and in the future.
And it has a lot of trail assets that are great trails, but not part of that don't constitute parts of a network. They're kind of dead ends when it comes to being a network. A lot of these green routes are great for county residents to go from one area to another within their local neighborhood. But I would not think Council of Governments would want to advocate for upgrading those. What they should be looking for are the last gap, that connection under the Beltway at Route 50 and that type of thing. That should be this will be a great tool to try to highlight those kind of last mile or last 5 miles or whatever of what would be an important long distance connection in the region. That seems to be their philosophy, right?
Yeah, and hearing what you're saying here, Ken, I mean, I think what you wouldn't want to do is get halfway between Tysons and Sterling or Sterling and Leesburg and find out that it's not there. So, or if it is not there, then like you just said, then that's the gap in the network that should be prioritized. So maybe there is a higher level of prioritization lens that needs to be applied to this, that it's not just covering, all these north, south, east, west diagonal corridors that could form a network, but maybe also, a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3 approach or something that, this is the network we have today with priority gaps. This is the network we could have in 25 years.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Priority gaps or something like that.
The other thing that I'll mention, if you don't mind, is that on their website, if you look at their website that Jim just posted, they have a section in the trails section called priority projects, right? And so these are projects that are the significant gaps, the last mile, the whatever it is, that under Route 50, under the Beltway type of things that are should be priorities for the region, that I think we should highlight or make an attempt to highlight for the Council of Governments, but that this map doesn't necessarily do so. It leaves a lot of work to the Trails Coalition, and I think that we can probably provide some of that input that, hey, this is a really important thing as an east-west connector, et cetera.
Once again, when when it came to Drainsville, I worked with the supervisor's office, and I guess we, the goal is to not to put every trail on it, but what few trails would contribute to a regional network, and so we essentially ended up with two main trails with a couple of connectors, and I mean the tendency is to start throwing every trail on there just about. So but you got to keep in mind the purpose of this network is regional. So also, I think an advantage of having this is it will actually put out there an agreed upon network that's regional, and you can start spending VDOT money, the tax money that. Remember the big fight about, well, this is for roads. We're not going to build bike trails with this money. And we managed to overcome that with the I-66 trail. So we won that battle there. But if this network is out there as an official network, man, you got a lot of ammunition to apply to spend that money on these trails.
Anybody else have comments or want to be brought into the discussion?
Do you mind?
Is Old Key Mill Road on one of the highlighted regional routes?
I hope not. Let's find out.
While we're putting that up, has WABA weighed in on this, on the not just Fairfax County, but the whole?
They were very active in the Washington and Maryland areas. They have not been that involved with Fairfax County.
So no, Keene Mill Road is not on there, generally speaking. There is a small section along in the Springfield CBD that looks like it extends between the Backlick Road Trail and the Stream Valley Trail. I guess that's where the Cross County Trail goes through. But then west of the Cross County Trail, it is not shown.
It would be helpful, I think, to have a good definition of what a regional trail is or what you want to accomplish. It'll give it a little lens to look through, that you're not going to get every little small one. But if you have a 8-mile or 10-mile road like Old Key Mill Road that connects, I would want to maybe see that one in there too.
Hey, Chris.
This map has got way too much on it. It's really hard to read. It's hard to know what is the purple stuff.
The purple is the district boundaries. What if this was on GIS, we could just turn off the blues. The blues are the entire trails plan. So, but to Howard's point, although Old Keene Mill Road is a major east-west corridor, there is not a trail along there, and we don't have funding for a trail along there at the moment. So that's the discussion I'm hearing from you all tonight, that yes, at the one level, it would be great to designate an Old Keene Mill Road because it goes east-west and covers, splits the distance between Braddock Road and the Fairfax County Parkway. But on the other hand, there is no bike facility on there, nor is there a plan for one.
So Chris, this is Stephen. What I heard you say at the very beginning was that the instructions from COG led you initially to say we're not going to put a lot on there, and then you found that wasn't being consistently applied by other jurisdictions. So yes. Understandably, you wanted to put stuff forward. And so, obviously part of the conversation needs to be at the COG level about making sure there's sort of an equal standard applied across jurisdictions. But, my own view, and I think it's reflected in the comments you've heard tonight, is we should err on the side of not over-representing our trails, because I think, as you said, the intent of this initially as an advocacy thing, if we identify areas where we don't have good trails, but where it would be important to have trails, that's far better than overstating what's there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
This is Jim. If you want to see an oversubscribed system, go on the Capital Trails Network website and look at Prince George's County. They basically put their whole plan on there. I mean, it's
right.
It's pretty overwhelming. So I think that would be what not to do, but we need more than what we got. And if you also look at the criteria they have, it spells out pretty clearly what a regional trail is, I think, and that's what they're looking for. So we should kind of go by their definition. As you move forward with the plan, this could be great input for it, and for identifying those primary trails, which might have some of the things that don't really qualify as a regional trail, but are important to the county.
So, do they differentiate between in their ask? Do they ask you to differentiate between actually in place as a usable trail or planned? Because it appears as if both your red and your green category both mix those together. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, they have expanded their definition to have us to more let us show our vision of a network, not what is necessarily existing, but.
Okay, but I understand that, but and I don't know what the other counties did, but some of those lines need to be dashed. A lot of those lines, I said, they need to be dashed.
And that's
whatever you use to designate something that has to be paid for in the future, because the purpose of the whole drill is to sort of to affect future funding. It may not affect it much now, but it eventually will. And if you're not differentiating between what's there now and what hasn't been poured yet, I'm not sure it's real useful in terms of planning, right?
Yeah, no, that Jim made that point earlier that the Capital Trails Network map is dashed, and see we're taking GIS information and giving it to them, but then they're going to use it.
Does your GIS information include what's there and what's not there?
Yeah, see, I'm sorry here. Can I do this now? I pulled up their map. Where's WebEx again? Share screen, Internet Explorer. Share, come on. There we go. So.
One map shows what the plan is, and then the next map shows the dashed lines that you're talking about, Ken. We can't put everything on one map. I think you need a map of the proposal, and then a map of, okay, here's the status right now, and then that gets at the dashed part you're talking about.
Yes, I think it's my question is about the data the GIS data you're providing them, regardless of how it goes on a map that we see.
So can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
So this is one version of the Capital Trails map, and as you can see, it has all of Prince George's County as dashed. So in our county, it actually that Route 50 stretch across the Beltway is dashed, as is Ken's favorite stretch of Braddock Road. So ultimately, in this map, it has been reflective of some of the discussions we're having tonight, but in the identification map that Nicole is putting together of these potential additions to the map, they would probably end up more as dashed lines. I mean, what we're trying to close is the gaps in the network that you see, big holes in Fairfax County. But again, this is a schematic, whereas this is the actual map. And then again, for us, the the difference is green is existing and orange is planned, but we still have these big holes in big parts of the county that would be, to describe a better network, would be better to have more of these orange lines showing that there would be a trail there if it was funded, or when it is funded.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, well, I think we spent enough time on that. Thank you. Let's see if I can stop sharing that. Stop sharing.
Okay, and so anybody who has any further comments, you can certainly contact Chris, and he'll be sending the whole map to everybody, so we'll have another opportunity to interact.
Can I just put one last thing in here, that on their website, on the GIS version of the map, it shows planned versus existing trails. So when you look at the GIS version, so there must be a way for you to make sure you communicate that. I think that's the really important thing.
Right.
If you just hit explore the map, it'll go right into that. For those that, where it said explore the map on that page, that's all you have to do.
Correct.
Very easy. You
Sean,
get to do it.
Sean, is it right?
Mostly so far. I mean, I'm not exploring everything, but yes, so far it is pretty right. I mean, there's this South County East-West Trail, which when this first came out, we had some big questions on, which includes it includes basically like Burke Road. It starts and stops, but apparently it's supposed to go all the way from Burke all the way into Alexandria, and it is listed as being planned. So yeah, it looks pretty much right. The Custis I-66 trail extension is on here as planned, and we know that is, again, in the planning still. So I think that it's accurate from whatever we have previously provided to them.
And just to on that first trail you mentioned there, Sean, that east-west trail that runs along the railroad, essentially, we did not recommend that one ourselves because it didn't meet that original definition of existing and funded, but they chose to show it because it makes a good it would make a good regional trail if it would ever be constructed. So again, this went from an advocacy tool to quickly being adopted by COG, and that's, in retrospect, it shouldn't have happened that way, but things happen.
Okay, so we have spent more than 10 minutes on that. Is Nicole joined the call? I don't see her name.
She texted that she was on her way soon. Her meeting was running late. I think on the agenda.
So Chris, can you give us a staff report until she arrives?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I presented at the Board Transportation Committee yesterday for about an hour and 15 minutes on two presentations. One was an update on the pedestrian and bicycle safety initiative, which is a response to the board's January 2020 board matter, sort of highlighting what has happened in the past year, which essentially is the VDOT updated their pedestrian safety action plan information. We installed rapid flash beacons with VDOT pedestrian safety action plan money. We did the Tyson's Boulevard street closure and had reviewed others that we couldn't end up doing, and that we've negotiated with VDOT on the Route 7 project to have crosswalks on all four legs of most intersections, and that we've negotiated with VDOT to pilot some pedestrian improvements on the Route 1 corridor, such as reprogramming signals, adding signs, making better marked crosswalks. So that's the short version of that presentation. Then we also updated the board on the active Fairfax transportation plan, showed some of the new data that we've started to come in. We have an equity needs and demand analysis map that is actually very useful and will be useful as we look to find out where we get the most bang for the buck, where we use the demographic characteristics that define equity need, and then compare that against where we have just traditional demands such as population density and employment density, and then where those all come together, you have both equity need and demand. So that's where you would get the most bang for the buck. We have streetlight data that we have as part of the research that we're doing. So for nerdy traffic engineer staff like myself, having data on pedestrians and bicycles is something we've never really had before. So we just got that in recently, but the bicycle, for instance, I presented a graphic that had a snapshot of a day of bicycling in Fairfax County, and there was 35,000 bicycle trips on that day in Fairfax County. And so that's a number we've never been able to quantify to anybody when we're asked, how many people are doing this and where are they doing this. So that presentation summarized a little bit about where we are with the systematic safety plan and where we are with outreach. So if you have an hour and 15 minutes and you want to watch the recording of the Board Transportation Committee, it's not my part that's actually interesting. It's actually more the board's feedback. What I've said is that, when I was the original pedestrian program manager when the program was created in 2002, and fast forwarding to the year 2020 and where we are now, I believe today's board is more interested and engaged in the subject matter of pedestrian and bicycle issues than they were in 2002 when the pedestrian program was created. So if you get a chance to watch it, you can see the feedback that the board is given, the emphasis that the board is giving on things such as our lack of lighting or our funding challenges. And so they're clearly, from, in my opinion, the staff, from the leadership level of the board, they are very engaged in this issue and very interested in helping to solve problems. So that was the one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing was, I know Stephen was on the meeting last night. We had a meeting with citizens along the Blake Lane corridor there was unfortunately a bicycle crash involving a teenager or a preteen, and that galvanized a public input on concerns about pedestrian safety in the corridor. And of course, this is what I've been doing with my career, but it was interesting to me, the extreme concern about speeding that seems to have gotten worse, and the fact the comment was made, my presentation was based on, I could improve 5 crosswalks. That's $1 million, $2 million. I could build a $10 million trail instead of the sidewalk that's there. So, or a $15 million trail. So, with $15 million, we could transform the corridor. And while they appreciated that, they bluntly said, and probably correctly made the point, that it wouldn't matter if we can't do anything about the speeding, that if the cars are still going to mow them down, that flashing rapid flash beacons and better median refuges really doesn't solve the problem. And so that is that was a good point. And so maybe as policymakers and as staff, we're going to have to take the next step. They were adamant that what they needed was the speed limit lowered and that road to be turned into a 2-lane road, that a 4-lane divided roadway is incompatible with an entirely residential neighborhood. And our traditional way of looking at a road like that was that, well, it's got 24,000 vehicles a day, it needs to be 4 lanes. But I did have to admit under questioning that, well, theoretically we could convert that road to a 2-lane road, and there are alternate routes, including a brand new 10-lane freeway right next to it, and that most of those 24,000 vehicles could probably find another way to get around. So, that would be a huge policy leap for us as leadership, as staff, and for VDOT to consider taking a road that functions as a 4-lane road and turning it into a 2-lane road. But, maybe that is where we need to go someday, because, I certainly was sensitive to what they were saying, that as we know, speed is certainly the enemy of pedestrian fatalities, and nothing does lower speed without physically changing the characteristics of the road, whether it's speed humps in neighborhoods or in this case, a radical narrowing of a 4-lane road. So I thought I'd mention that. I found that, again, I've been doing this for a long time, and the citizens were very polite but passionate about their concerns, and that was the issue. That was the unsolved issue to everything we were talking about, was the excessive speeding, and it was hard to not not agree with that point.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, if you let me just say something. One, I thought your designs were great, and I appreciate that you guys put a lot of time into better crosswalks. That was great. I completely agree with your summation. And I thought what was my reflection in the morning after was the police chief, I guess, reported that they had been doing, not a quote, speed study, but they've been monitoring volumes and speeds. And the median speed was slightly above the speed limit, right? So people are easily going way over 35 miles an hour, which we know is a speed that leads to fatalities, right? And so clearly, I would absolutely agree with you. It was wonderful to hear such a vibrant community say, please slow the traffic down. Make the road slower, make it smaller if you need to, but just make it slower. So it reminded me a lot of the conversations we've been having with this committee over the last many months about Route 1 and slowing that down. So just good stuff to hear from a community.
Yep.
This is Jim. I just want to say that they did get, your boss, Tom, got some money somewhere for that Route 1 study, for speed study, which is great news. And he mentioned it would be about a year or something.
Correct. That's my understanding, that it'll take about a year to conduct the study. So I also learned today that Route 1 has some special designation as a non-degradation arterial or something. So it's
on the national highway system.
Yeah, but there's, like, for instance, adding signals you have to go through more hoops than you do someplace else or something. So it's there's always something out there. But yeah, the speed study we did fund, and we have some scoping language going back and forth with VDOT to do that speed study on Route 1. So those were really the two things I thought, given our time limits. Again, the board transportation committee presentations, if you have a chance to view them, and what we just talked about on Lake Lane. Otherwise, it's, if the committee has any specific questions on projects, or if you'd like a future presentation of some of the other things that are going on in the county, then we can certainly arrange for that.
Hey, Chris, I haven't watched it yet. I wasn't able to watch it live time yesterday, but Acorn and Lusk's motion last year spoke, I think, directly about Vision Zero type things. And I know the county has been reluctant to embrace that term, and you've gone to systematic safety. But can you give us a little digest of what happened yesterday with any of that language?
Sure, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it slipped my mind. They actually asked a very good question. So VDOT, the state, it's actually the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, but that makes VDOT part of it, has what's called towards zero deaths. Then likewise, there is Vision Zero. And so I have my notes buried here somewhere, but one of the board members, it might have been Supervisor McKay or Chairman McKay, asked, what's the difference between Vision Zero and towards zero deaths? And that's something I don't know off the top of my head. So many of the board members spoke to Vision Zero, or the concept of zero deaths, and Supervisor Palachuk also echoed that question of what is the difference. So we acknowledged, as usual, that we don't have, because we don't own our roads, we don't have all the tools that cities have, for instance, towards implementing that. But we will need to be reporting back on that question about what's the difference between VDOT's or the state's Virginia's policy and the Vision Zero, and then the context of that question then led to and so if there are gaps, what do we need to do to close those gaps? What do we need to do to bring Virginia to a Vision Zero position, whether legislatively, policy-wise, or so on?
Okay, so in the interest of time, Nicole has joined us, and I'm hopeful that Nicole can quickly find her mute button and unmute herself, because we would like her to give us the first item on the agenda that she was here to talk to us about, which was requested by others, which is a review and a discussion of the bike events application. Oh, I'm sorry. The active Fairfax plan we're really interested in too, but first on the agenda is the bike events application. Nicole, please.
So we had a question about that. What exactly is bike events application referring to? Are those bicycle community events, or are you referring to the bicycle friendly community application? Is a committee member there that had that question?
Don't remember who asked the question. Anybody remember asking this question? Okay, look, we're going to take this. Go ahead.
I asked the question about the bicycle community application.
Right, so it wasn't about events, it was just it was a bicycle friendly community application?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought. We were a little bit confused by by the term. So the bicycle friendly community application, I shared, I think, the last application with you. We are due for an update. We just need to, like, we can what we have already provided 4 years ago, and then make updates to it. So I shared, I think, the PDF. I can share an older draft, which is a Word version, which would be perfectly fine for you to add to, and then I can integrate it. So I just want to mention about the bicycle friendly community application is really a certification of the entire community. It's not just the government. So it looks at, it takes a village to build a bicycle friendly community seriously, and all the great stuff that FAB is doing and WABA is doing, and all these other organizations, Safe Roads to School, and I just learned about a e-bike community ride group in Fairfax County. They are doing 25 rides a year. Potomac Paddlers, I mean, you name it. There's so many great community organizations out there that do events particularly, but also education, outreach. We need to include that in the application. And even though we submitted as Fairfax County DOT, it's really for the whole community. So I'm happy to collect all that input. Think about what you did pre-COVID. I mean, obviously COVID has really dampened a lot of the efforts, but this is really more about what we usually do or what we have done since the last application in 2017. And I will coordinate with the police department and schools to update their parts on enforcement and Safe Roads to School as well. And it's due in early February. So I would appreciate it if you would like to share all the great stuff you're doing. Please send me an email. Even if it's just an email listing all the events, like you don't even need to look at the application, just you want to talk about what you did, I can integrate it into the application. But we do submit it in early February.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the active Fairfax plan. But Nicole, I have to warn you that I'm going to interrupt you at 8:30 so we can, by the rules, ask for any public comment. And there'll probably be some time after that. So it's going to be in two halves. So I'll interrupt you at halftime. But the floor is yours.
There are 5 minutes? It gets me it's like 3 minutes more than I had in the reason why I'm late. Because I had a half-an-hour presentation that I had to give in 5 minutes.
No, you've got 7
I have slides, but I probably don't have enough time to share the slides even. Hold on, let's see if I even can do that. I have the ball, so okay, that's great. All right, can you see my slides? Yes, okay, great.
Yes.
So I just want to give a quick update on the project schedule. We are past the halfway point. Your window is in my way. There you go. So May, end of May, we are trying to wrap up phase 1. We're just wrapping up the existing conditions review. We have pretty much completed the policy and plan audit, and we have prepared for community engagement, and we really start to actually dive into the community engagement starting in early February with the virtual launch. And then the next task is the vision, goals, and objectives that will kind of take what you've learned and the community discussions and discussions with stakeholders to wrap it all together into where do you want to go as a county in active transportation. So a little bit more about the virtual launch and the community engagement. So on hopefully, fingers crossed, February 1st, we can launch an interactive map and a community survey that will allow the community to answer some questions about their wants and needs and their thoughts about walking and biking in Fairfax County, trails, all different kinds of safety ways of looking at active transportation. And the interactive map will allow them to actually zoom around on a map and draw points and leave comments on specific areas and segments, or where they would like to see some infrastructure added in the future. So that will bring you in. That we really need your help to spread the word through your circles and listservs, and try to get as much community participation as we can off the bat, because this is the general outreach. Then in the spring, we're planning more in-person outreach, like you see here in the picture. FCDOT doing, with COVID, in-person outreach, meet the people where they are, because we know we can't get everyone online, particularly our key target groups in our equity areas. So we're working on a community engagement plan with our outreach internal working group, but also the equity and youth advisory committee that will hopefully help us find the right strategies during COVID to hear the voices of everyone that is interested in active transportation and would like to have a say. So we are planning virtual community meetings, social media, in addition to that very targeted in-person outreach. And you all will have a chance to review the draft community engagement plan to make sure we get it right. We have a limited budget, so we can't do it all, but we have to pick and choose to get the biggest effect of and the most inclusive outreach with the means that we have. And then again, the next step is determine the vision and goals. So we have set up individual interviews with supervisors. We have the community survey and all these community engagement efforts that will give us some feedback on what the community is envisioning for Fairfax County. But we also, of course, want to have that conversation with your committee. We have developed an vision and goals exercise that we can bring next time. Quickly on the external advisory groups, so we have the Equity Advisory Committee that kicks off tomorrow. We just had the training. It's actually still ongoing. Rachel Flynn is now hosting that meeting in my absence with the consultant. It has 21 members. We're going to meet every 2 to 3 months. I think we actually got a new member today in addition. And in phase 1, particularly, they're going to advise us on the target community engagement and the vision goals, as mentioned. And similar, the Youth Advisory Committee has been established with 17 members. We're still looking at what the kickoff date and training date is convenient for everyone, but they will have a similar task, just with a different perspective. Quickly on the policy and plan audit update. So they went through all the plans, and in addition to looking at the policy text, they also looked at the recommendations for active transportation facilities. And for the very first time, we now have a map that doesn't only have the trails plan and the bike plan, but also all these activity center plans that have active transportation facilities in it that they're mapped out. So usually those are only cross sections and names of roads. So we never had them in the same format as the bike and trails plans, which are pretty easy to use maps. So we developed that, and it's as confusing as this map shows. So everything you see here in a bright green is an activity center plan, which technically overrides both the trails plan and the bike plan. Many of these have good bike facilities, but nearly none of them have trail facilities. So this is one of the reasons we have to kind of work through and figure out from the 3 recommendations you see in some of these roads, which one is the one that we really want there, and even then, do we even want something else, like a cycle track that wasn't really on the radar of many of these plans. On the existing conditions, as I mentioned, we developed this map of existing facilities and the planned facilities. We did an active transportation demand analysis, an equity analysis, travel pattern review, traffic stress and comfort review, and a safety analysis. And we just got all this stuff, and it's still in draft, so it's not ready to be shared per se. So we're still working through some of what the consultant sent us, but we should be able to share at the next meeting in more detail. Here's one thing we shared with the supervisors that we feel fairly confident about, that it will remain the way it is. So this shows the equity need and the demand for active transportation in one map. So it overlays both indicators. And on the left here, you see what kind of indicators for each category, like the equity need analysis and the demand analysis included. So demand obviously has to do with land use, where people live, shop, whether we create trails, the pedestrian and bicycle generators. And then on the equity need side, of course, there are, populations with no access to a motor vehicle, age, race, like some of these traditional indicators that we use to measure inequity, really. So the maroon fields you see sprinkled throughout Fairfax County is really where those 2 needs are strongest. So those are the areas where there's currently the highest inequity or highest equity need, but also the highest demand for active transportation. And it's about 11% of the population, of the total population of Fairfax County. This is where we would technically get the biggest bang for our buck, both from an active transportation standpoint, but also from one Fairfax policy standpoint. Here's a map that Chris referenced that shows bicycle trip, and it's actually not a snapshot, it's an average. So some days will be more bike use and some will be less. But it's interesting because it kind of shows where trails are and where popular country roads are. We see a lot of cyclists, but also, along in activity centers. And the average trip length kind of confirms that. There, 41% of the bike trips are less than a mile, but then 16% are really long distance trips. We also look at short vehicle trips that could potentially be converted. So you see a lot of little activity centers that people drive to from the nearby neighborhoods, either because it's not safe to walk or they don't want to walk, it's not enticing, not enjoyable to walk, or there are barriers to walking. So 7% of all vehicle trips are actually less than a mile. And those are really the ones that could be converted to biking and walking. And then there are 14% on top of that are even under 2 miles. So there's a good potential in Fairfax County to really take some cars off the road, and if we design our land use right and our transportation system. So next steps, and that's already pretty much the end of my presentation. So next steps is that we are just finalizing the plan policy audit, which is due at the end of January. We're finalizing the community engagement plan, which is due in early March. We haven't progressed very far yet with it because we were waiting for the external advisory committees to come on board, because we really don't want to get too far without their involvement. To have a truly engaged, inclusive conversation. And then we are going to develop the vision and goals and performance measures, which are due in early May. And then funding for phase 2 was one of the questions. We asked for funding, but we haven't heard back yet. So that's TBD. And under COVID, it's our funding situation is not as rosy as it is in other years. So we may need to get creative. So we will see. That's it.
Nicole, can I ask a question? A quick question.
Sure.
Sorry, James. We're going to have to break for a second to get public comment, the 8:30 public comment. But after that, we can have comment. We can have discussion about Nicole's presentation. So, if you don't mind, sorry about that. So, let me invite any members of the public who have joined us or who was the one who was with us at the beginning. If you have any comments, or the floor is yours.
First, I apologize for interrupting. I was interested in what Nicole was saying. Reintroduce myself for those that were not here. I've served on the Transportation Advisory Commission, Mount Vernon District Rep. And frankly, the commission thought that the Bikes and Trails group and the TAC should probably work together closer. And after sitting here this last hour and 30 minutes, I'm definitely on board, because lots of what we've been already working on and what this committee is working on, same sort of stuff. We're trying to change our spots a little bit in that, and you guys are recognizing it too. Traditionally, roads have all been measured by what they call level of service. And basically that's how long a car sits at an intersection at 8 o'clock in the morning during rush hour. And they build everything to that. And they don't take into consideration sidewalks, people, or frankly, the livability of the area. So we're trying to transform the TAC to now take those things into consideration and make complete streets. And a thing, you probably have used it, but destination and making place, which sounds like the same sort of stuff you're talking about, calming down the roads, greening the areas, increasing frankly, the experience of the pedestrians. So I can go on and on, but I don't want to. I just commend you for what you're doing, and look forward to maybe working with you guys more as the months go by. So that's about it. And thank you for letting me here.
Thank you very much. You're welcome, and of course you're going to be welcome every time you want to join us, so that's fine. First of all, I'd be sure, are there any other members of the public present? Okay. So let's entertain questions for Nicole on Active Fairfax. James.
So, Nicole, the first phase is in May. So when you do the community outreach plan, that's not going to be implemented until phase 2, correct?
No, we're only working on the community engagement plan for phase 1.
So you're going to get feedback on the plan by the February meeting, and it has to be all done. All the outreach is done by May.
No, it's the first round of outreach. There will be multiple rounds, and phase 2 will have its own community engagement plan. So we're currently just getting like the initial feedback of where the issues are, where potential new trails should be that are currently not planned for, these kind of things. Hearing the stories of pedestrian safety issues. This is what we're working on right now.
But that feedback then, so that's going to give, the community is going to give feedback on what they want to have, what they see by the end of phase 1.
Yes. And then phase 2 will have community outreach that focuses on actual recommendations. And the reason we have to divide it is not necessarily the financial. That's one aspect to it. Our consultant is not scoped to work on phase 2 currently. They have to divide that and wait for the next round of funding and a new contract. But it's really phase 2 is a comprehensive plan amendment, and any sort of community engagement is part of that plan amendment, and it's a slightly different process. So we have to clearly separate them.
It seems incredibly optimistic that you're going to get regional community feedback in between February and May.
Yeah, I mean, we will keep it open. It's not just a 2-week period. So we launched the public feedback platform that is always open 24 hours, and then a couple of months in February, and then we will actually go out to get this in-person feedback throughout the spring, and then we have to wrap it back around in the summer with the next round of outreach or whenever phase 2 is funded, and we will be able to continue the outreach.
But Nicole, to the question, it'll be open. It's at this stage, we're looking for visions and goals kind of outreach, not necessarily a missing trail outreach, or we're looking for both, and then the missing trail part would carry forward into phase 2.
And the reason we're asking about the missing trails now is because we realize we're getting a lot of probably attention and press with the initial outreach, and we may just hear back from people once. They may never get in touch with us again. So we want to get like the key feedback of where the issues and what are your goals, and where are the missing connections. And it's a great way to engage with the community, because that's really what they care about, and that affects them personally. Is, I want to go from my house to the school over there, and I can't get there because there is a park in between and there's no trail planned. And we had that conversation with Henley Meadows in that initial community meeting, and we thought it went really well to have the maps there that people could just draw lines on and make comments. And it's a great way of getting feedback that we can later use all over the county.
So Nicole, let me ask you to, okay, you have the 20, not counting yourself, 19 most interested in trail, sidewalks, and bikeways people in Fairfax County. You have our undivided attention, and you said, I want you to really help with outreach about what? Give me the elevator speech that you want us to really help you with.
Just to get the word out, you mean? Or what the whole project is about?
Yeah. Get the word out about what? What word am I taking to people?
So the opportunity to really let us know what the community experiences every day walking and biking in Fairfax County, or why they don't want to do it, so that we really hear those different opinions and stories, that we can record them, and the more the merrier. I mean, VDOT told us, we don't know how we can even invest or help you with active transportation infrastructure if those people don't come to the meeting. And there's some truth to that. Like, we don't have a good public record of active transportation demands that we can share. So we're trying to get a really broad feedback from the community on the missing sidewalks, or the intersections are too wide, or maybe they have a great time walking, but in Mosaic District. So we want to hear the different perspectives, and the local knowledge of where these connections that are currently missing, even in the plan. I mean, obviously there are actual on the ground connections missing, but sometimes the plan doesn't even provide a connection, even if we had the funding. So these opportunities to increase access to daily destinations, and funding priorities in the end. I mean, the funding is limited. This plan will help guide future funding decisions. So if they want to improve their community and have a piece of the pie, it's helpful to be involved.
So it's a tough ask, because you hear plenty from me, long meals and all that stuff. But the person who lives on that side and the person who lives on that side, you're asking me to try to elicit information from people about what they don't do, and maybe why don't they do it. They never think like that. So it's a pretty unstructured question to try to send out there. And I'm just wondering if there's a more directed question, or a more just a better way to elicit the types of information that you want, rather than I see you have a survey. Is that survey link out there? So if I post something on Nextdoor locally
Yes.
here, then I should use that survey link and that type of thing. But
So
you understand my
the
concern,
website is the
that
landing platform. So the website will have the explanation of what the project is about, the link to the map, the link to the survey. It will be available in multiple languages. So what we really need your help with is not necessarily, having the conversation yourself and then having to write me an email with a summary, but to just steer people to the website so they can kind of dive in. And the way we structure the survey is also supposed to be educational, to say, to make people think about the opportunities and the barriers, even if they haven't done that before.
Okay.
That may not be part of the elevator speech, though. That's like
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Nicole, it's Steven. So I guess the question I would ask is, would you be wanting to seek input from this advisory committee, which are citizens, some planners, some not, on what the survey looks like? So you have sort of a pre-test, I guess. Even on your sort of your PowerPoint presentation that you showed, I would, if I had it in hand, if you'd shared it, I could offer some feedback, for instance, on what you thought or what the county is currently thinking is too far, 2 to 5 miles for reasonable biking. I might push back on that. I might be able to offer you some feedback. We, as a committee, might be able to offer you some feedback on your community outreach before you ask us to promote it.
Sure, we can share the link, and we are also sharing it with the equity advisory group and the youth advisory group for review as well. At some point, we need to translate it, but that's pretty quick. So if I share it today, how much time turnaround would you all require to get your feedback to me?
Is a week reasonable for your time frame?
Yes, it would be reasonable. Okay. I will share the survey if you want to take a look and click through.
A solid deadline. Get this done by what is it, 20th? Is that right?
I don't have a calendar. What's a calendar?
Yeah, next Wednesday's 20th inauguration day.
Y'all get the day off.
Yeah, that's a day off. You can spend your day off reading the community survey.
So Nicole, I can probably get an interview with a local blog that goes to about 2,000 or 10,000 people. I need to go to Sean's question. I need to really specifically, not just, hey, just go to the website. You must have some, to Ken's point, some message that if I was to sit down and talk to somebody or to do something on Nextdoor, which is what I will do as well, it's not super compelling to say go to a website, but I understand that we're trying to collect data. If I were to talk about it, do you have talking points you got developed? Do you have in that outreach plan?
Yeah, that's something we can put together for you. That would be more the targeted outreach where we really would need that, because we really are going to talk one-on-one, but I can see how that's helpful for you to spread the word and others. So we can put something together and share that.
Could be helpful.
Nicole, were you going to use the supervisor's newsletters when the survey is launched, I guess?
Yes, we shared with the supervisors, and the link, the website is already up, so that link won't change, so it can't go in anything right now. It currently says stay tuned for more information. Sure. There will be a newsletter that folks will be able to sign up for, that will keep them up to date on the project. So right now we steer all the traffic to the website instead of just a survey or just a map, just so they can keep interacting with the project beyond the links that eventually will go away.
Nicole, what was when were you going to do the survey? If you said it, I missed it or I've forgotten already.
Early February.
For how long?
Until probably the end of April. So at some point we have to wrap it up because we have to write that final kind of report out of it.
So you want to go live with the survey in early February? Okay.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Nicole, it's Beth at Park Authority. Can you get me the person who can kind of share a, I want to hook them up with our public information officer so we can share the whatever you need us to share on our Instagram and all that. Like we have a lot of followers on that. So I just kind of want for consistency's sake, I don't want us to write it. If you can get us something to put on there, that would be really helpful and probably for a consistent message for everybody.
Yeah,
what you want us
absolutely.
to say. So we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what everyone else is asking about. Like these short blurbs about the project, and that will be part of the launch package that the consultant is putting together.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that whoever's doing the public information on your end can talk to ours, because as soon as we put something out, we get tons of questions. So I just want to make sure that we know who to send stuff to, and we don't get blasted with emails that get sent around the Park Authority that no one knows what's going on. So I just want to make sure we have a good process for getting you the questions from when we send out these blasts.
Yeah, I don't think we have anyone that like filter in between. I think everything goes to me.
Yeah, I was hearing Beth's question. I was thinking the same thing. In this Blake Lane thing, the police made a point that they, I don't know, have 200,000 followers on something, Facebook, Instagram, one of those things. And so we should probably get the police to help spread our message as well. But, Beth really makes a good point. How do we manage if 200,000 people contact us, how do we manage?
And everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so other questions for Nicole, please.
Yeah, this is Jim. The Mount Vernon has a town hall style event on February 3rd. If there's any information you want to get to the supervisor's office for something like that, that'd be a great venue to do it. It'll be all virtual this year, unfortunately. But
that would be a good incentive to get the survey and everything out by February 1st. We're a little bit relying on our communications team and their workload, so it's hard for me to tell. But we are at least the project team is aiming for February 1st. But as always, the website link is really what we need to get out to folks, so we can definitely do that.
that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so we've done bicycle friendly community designation. We've done our citizen comments, so we can move to our active and unresolved issues. Item 1 is an update on the county action on TSB social equity seat proposal. I haven't checked it. I looked at it on my email. I got an answer for this question. Am I the only one who got this? Did anyone else receive that email? Nothing heard. Okay, I will forward to everybody the chairman's response, which was basically, this was probably a challenging response for him to write. He fully endorses and understands our goals in terms of social equity, but feels that a social equity representative is probably not the best solution to the goals. So, but I'll send you the email rather than trying to interpret his words. So, boils down to the fact that it's not a direction that the chair wants to go, and of course this went to every member of the board of supervisors as well. So, but there's some ongoing contacts and interactions with county offices that he recommended that we engage with. So we probably ought to take up his recommendations. And my apologies, like I said, not seeing the to list. I was of the impression that everybody got this. So, and then had this sinking feeling that I was the only one who was the response. So we'll take that up next month.
Well, so Ken, this is Stephen. What I take from that is when any one of us older white males step down, we should look for a more diverse replacement.
He doesn't say that specifically, but certainly that's the case. But I think really putting it more broadly, if we're going to achieve this as a society, all of us older white males and just about everybody else needs to take this into their hearts and souls and ideas and concepts also. He basically said, I want you all to be the social equity representatives to the committee. That's kind of the gist of his answer. Again,
Bob,
I don't want to put words
forward. I don't agree with, Jeff, he can do whatever he wants to do, but we're where we are because of the fact that we're supposed to have it in our hearts and stuff like that. We're still all white. We have a big committee with all kinds of people representing all kinds of things. And that's disappointing that that's not a big enough issue for him. I'm disappointed by that. I would like to see the response directly.
Well, that's my fault. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. So,
this is.
I would apologize to our absent board chairman because I'm trying to paraphrase the words that I have no doubt were difficult for him to put on paper. So,
Ken, I think we can address this in a lot of ways. I don't think one could argue that if you now we'll appoint someone to be that, and then now it's their issue to deal with, and we don't have to deal with it. I think that we could deal with this in a number of ways. Maybe we ought to make this an item at the next meeting to discuss. Once we see what the chairman said, we could all discuss what the next step would be. I know I have ideas on that, but anyway, we won't solve it tonight till we see the email. But could we put it on the agenda for next month?
Yes, certainly. And David, can you keep me honest on that and make sure it gets on the agenda for next month?
Yeah, I made a note of it, Ken. I put the agenda, and I meant to ask, we need other agenda items no later than the 27th to meet, the timelines for posting everything, for a public meeting. So 2 weeks from now, anybody else has any other ideas for an agenda item, we can take that in and I'll send it on to David, and then he'll parse it, through the staff.
So I'm afraid we only have 3 minutes left, and I'm going to execute some chairman's prerogatives. And could I get a quick update on the Gabrielson Gardens Bridge replacement status?
Karen, do you want to weigh in on that?
Or Beth?
I got an email from Karen that said that the plan was approved and the county is in the process of notifying the contractor. That doesn't give us a schedule, but it's gotten over that geotechnical issue that came up sort of late in the game. And so Karen sent me the email, basically she's been talking with her supervisor. So that's as much as I know at this point. But maybe Beth, maybe you know a little bit more.
I don't, unfortunately. I didn't get a chance to talk to Tom today before coming to the meeting to see if he had a product update, but if Karen could get off mute, maybe she was trying. She has something to say, I know it, but she just can't say it.
Yeah, it says she's off mute, but we can't hear you, Karen. It's weird.
I know it's not my turn, but a lot of times the headphones is what causes the problems.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, it was the headphones? Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, so I just, I've been back and forth in the delays, which has been very disappointing to a lot in the community. It seemed to do with the permits, because we were really hoping we'd have that bridge back by the end of the year. But from Mike Coyle today sent a message to me that I shared that says the permit obstacle is over and the bridge has been built and the contractor is ready, and they don't get paid until the bridge is in place. So they're motivated to to put it there as soon as possible. So there's hope that it shouldn't, it's not supposed to take long once they start doing the work. So maybe within, you know, a month, maybe by the next meeting, we'll have a bridge. Thanks. Headphones. Okay, I'm muting.
And Ken, if you want, I'll send out an update via email from Tom after this, if that works.
Okay, I'd appreciate that since that was a big hot topic for us for a long time. But I just see that as finally good news, so that's good. It sounds like whatever problems we've got are short term and can be overcome. I like it that the bridge is already built. You got to put it somewhere. Might as well put it over the creek. Okay, so we've gone past our time. We will move all of the other issues to next week. Does anybody have any burning issues that they want to be sure it comes before the committee tonight?
This is Wade. Just one quick note. It's not just a note. The equestrian representative, I don't think has ever attended, and the Builders Association representative has stopped attending, and I think maybe we ought to see if we can get other people, because if they're gonna have these places on the committee, the people should attend.
Quick, Rachel Flynn did a tremendous job last month in that presentation, and I met with her for 3 hours and walked her through the community because she was open to it. So all of you should do that. She's really, really good, and she's a strong ally. And I'm just saying, it was wonderful. It was great. You should do it too.
Wow. So just so everybody knows, so you did this during COVID, is that right?
So I called her. Yeah. We met separate. The two of us met. We were both masked up. We just walked around Mason District for about 2 hours, and then had a long talk, looked at some stuff.
See, Bob and I are concerned about a Braddock Road issue that I sent her a long letter, and I might do the same thing. Invite her to come up to the Kings Park Shopping Center and show her what I'm talking about. So I'm glad that she was interested in that. So. I might take you up on that. Any other burning issues? I got your news, Wade. Chris, you and I are gonna have to work together to find out how we get back to those organizations.
This is Sean. Please let us know if you're going to be doing any of these. We'd be happy to attend. The Kings Park one is right near my house, first of all, but I mean, I'm sure there are others that other FAD members would be happy to attend. So please keep us informed if you're going to be, if you'd like us to attend those, we'd be happy to.
I'm glad I mentioned it. Yeah, I would have forgotten about you, but yes, absolutely. Sure, Sean. I'm pretty sure I sent you my email on that, but I'll let you know what Bob and I get arranged. Okay, motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
So it now being 9:03, have a good and safe January, everybody, and I expect to see everybody here hale and healthy in a good 4 weeks.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Good night.
Good evening.
Everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.